Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Listen with Vobes. I'm Richard Vobes, and this is another chance to read a section of Neighbourhood by Tickner Edwards. Fascinating and very poetic, descriptive book written around 1910, published in around 1911, and describes the village under a different name of Burpham, pretty much, or it's slightly changed around a bit, and he calls it Windlecombe. And it's very nice to read this remarkable book, which on occasions has been quite tricky for me to read it. But we are forging ahead and doing our best. Hello to the lovely Julia, who is out there, along with TurboStream, Justine Jones, Cooper68, William. I don't think there is a William. Philip and Mary. I don't know where William came from. Alison and Jen and Stephen, two Stephens, in fact, one V-E-N and one P-H-E-N. And Stephen Agger says, Richard, I liked your ditchling walk. I'll be doing a walk from Hassocks to Clayton Mills, so I'll make a video. Do, that would be good to see. James Poulton, hello to you. Dave Evad, Anne H., Sensible Paul, John Morris, Lee Lawson, Skillet, hi Richard, and all enjoying the reading. Thank you very much. And I am enjoying this reading. I know I've struggled on some occasions, and I'm hoping I don't struggle today. We are halfway through the book. We need to think about what we're going to read next. And if anybody's got any suggestions, maybe something a little lighter would be good. If anybody would like me to tackle another Norman Collins novel, I'd be more than happy to do that. Or if you have any other suggestions, then that would be good too. I am hoping, just to let you know, that my son and his girlfriend are threatening to leave. They're waiting for solicitors and all of that. I think when they do leave, I will be making some changes and moving the studio space around. So I'll probably be taking a week off from everything, probably from the Bald Explorer. I may be posting updates on my shifting around of stuff so that I don't lose complete continuity of having stuff going out. So there may be a natural break in a couple of weeks' time, but I'll keep you posted on that. Good afternoon to John F. and to Andrew Norris as well. So we left the situation with... I'm just trying to remember what we left the situation with. The Reverend's garden is what is... Oh, Darky and his den. Hang on, I'm just trying... We left them... the mystery of the mystery no longer. It took by chance the secret nook. Does that ring a bell with you? I'm just trying to remember what the hell it was. I wondered how Darky fares this winter in his downland eyrie. It has always been a mystery in Wingle... Oh, yeah, yes, this is the gypsy bloke, isn't it? Yes, that's right, I remember now. The gypsy guy used to come down, the stranger, and he would disappear. And where did he stay? Nobody knew. Oh, no, what are we going to do in your absence, says Andrew Norris. Well, let's not worry about that till it comes, because it may be that I can, have a break and read a book to you in amongst all the decoration. But I'll do something. I don't think there will be a week where you don't hear from me, and I will try and do something every day, but let's worry about that nearer the time. So yes, that's right. At all times, winter or summer, he is to be met with tramping up the lane towards the downs, using the last light of the day, apparently, in putting himself, as far as may be, from the chance of a night's lodgings. And in the early mornings you meet him trudging down again from the heights, his basket full of odd hedgeside gatherings for sale in the town. The mystery is a mystery to me no longer, although it was quite by chance I lit upon him in his secret nook. That's where we got to. Coming over the downs one winter's morning, I saw a thin blue spiral of smoke rising from the very centre of a great patch of gorse on a hillside. And threading my way through the wilderness, bent on elucidating this phenomenon, I came at length upon a queer little scene. At the mouth of a sort of cave, cut deep into the solid green heart of the gorse thicket, burned a little fire of sticks, and over it hung a pot that gave forth a savoury steam. Behind the fire lay Darky on a snug couch of hay and old sacking, fast asleep, with a pipe in his mouth. Evidently had dozed off in the midst of his preparations for a meal. I took one swift look around his castle, noting various odd tins, old coats, and the like, hanging over his head, several cigar boxes filled with odd lumber behind him, and a shepherd's folding bar, a deadly weapon, 20 pounds or so of solid iron, lying conveniently to hand. And I took out my phone and took a photograph, and I would share this on my Instagram later that afternoon with... Oh, sorry, I made that last bit up. And then I crept away. Oh, he didn't take a photograph. And as silently as I had come. Not that I feared any violence from him. In all the years that we had been acquainted, I had never known him to harm a mouse. But many was the time I had turned him away from my own door, unceremoniously enough, sometimes with hard words, once or twice, indeed, with threatenings of his natural enemy, the constable. And I feared now reprisals of a kind that would hurt almost as much as the folding bar heftily wielded. I feared to see Darky stagger up to his feet and pull off to me one of my own long discarded caps, fear him give me generous and courtly words of welcome, and a kind of look out at his mastiff's eyes. I think my phone just rang a little moment there. I've had to change my phone because of scam calls. That's another story. But I don't want it ringing in the middle of the show. And courtly words of welcome, and a kind look... Hang on, I've lost my thing. I feared to see Darky stagger to his feet and pull off to me one of my own long discarded caps, hear him give me generous and courtly words of welcome, and a kind look out of his mastiff eyes, making me as free of his snug green roof dwelling as I had so often made him free of the street. Towards the hour of sunset, I went up to the little attic window again and looked out over the drenched housetops for any sign of a break in the weather. The rain had ceased, and the western sky had lightened somewhat, taking on an indefinable warmth of hue. There was no sunshine, nor any hope of sunshine, but there was a light abroad that picked out all the browns and reds and yellows in the landscape, wondrously intensifying them, while leaving all other hues as grey and cold as ever. Past 7 o'clock, and a cloudless night of stars, with woodlarks singing high over the village, and the cuckoos calling in the hills as though it was broad day. Yes, the change had come. Farmer Coles is never far out of his prognostications. It will be cutting weather tomorrow, and tomorrow I must be up with the earliest of them and away to the hoe field. Of summer evenings in Windlecombe, all through haying and harvest time, you see men by the same trance-like, serenely delatory mood. All have pipes well alight, leaving a trail of smoke behind them on the dusky golden air. All have hands thrust deep in pockets, carrying their unshaven chins high, tired as dogs, and looking as solemnly happy as noontide owls. And of all the days of the week, there are more of these placid optimists abroad, and these characteristics are most to be noted in them on the evening of the last working day. Today I went up and down the green, the most uncertain of a deliberate irresolute company, I went up and down the green, the most uncertain of a deliberate, resolute company, half a dozen times. Excuse me. Perhaps before, by common but unvoiced consent, we turned our lagging footsteps towards the inn. All the while, I was rejoicing in a procession, priceless indeed, yet hard won as might be, a heart and mind filled with the spirit of the cotter's Saturday night. You cannot get this chief of all country pleasures in exchange for money. It has to be had in only one way, at the cost of long laborious days in the fields. And every tired muscle, every aching joint in my body stood then as witness that I had done my best to earn what I had of it, if it might be earned at all. The old oak window seat in the parlour of the Three Thatchers was softly welcome as the Chancellor's woolsack. I would not have exchanged that mug of home-brewed ale for a draught of ambrosia at the feet of the gods. The crimson sunset light streamed hot upon me as I sat on the window ledge, half among the parlour company and half among those congregated on the benches under the Virginia creeper outside. Every moment or two, some other tired haymaker strolled up and added his solid breadth and his tobacco smoke to the throng. But we were not all field workers in the Three Thatchers tonight, nor had only the common causes of tired limbs and sun-parched throats brought us together. Young Daniel Dray was knitting his dark brows over some papers and account books at a trestle table, and young Tom Clemmer sat close by, thoughtfully swinging a cricket bat, pendulum fashion, between his outstretched legs. A silence fell upon the company. "Well," said Tom Clemmer at last, "I dunno. 'Tis never some matter awkward for Windlecombe, with young Master Coles hayin' and Tim Searle hayin' and George Locker and Tom and George Wright and Bill here all hayin'. How am I going to make up a team?" You could pick out the members of the cricket club committee amidst the crowd by reason of their grave, troubled faces, whereas all the other faces wore the easy, contented smile of the village Saturday night. We had weighty business to consider. The annual challenge had arrived from the Staversham Club. There was a cocksure overweening. They were a cocksure overweening lot, the Town 11, and we had set our hearts on beating them at the next Saturday's match. But there was the hay to carry, if the weather held. Many of our best players would be in the field. It looked as though the town were to add Windlecombe again to their long list of village victories. Secretary Dray gnawed savagely at the butt of his pen. "I knows how 'twill be," he said. "5 men and tailor boys. That old story. Tom here will knock up a couple of score, and then 'twill be out for the rest of us in 2 overs. And I can just hear the chalk-headed chaps of the town laughing." It was a dismal picture. The fragrance went out of the tobacco, and no man thought of his ale. The 3 canaries... Canaries? Is it canaries? Oh, canaries. Canaries, is it? Oh, canaries, of course. I don't know why I thought it was canaries. The 3 canaries cajoled so joyously in their cages overhead, and I could have wrung their necks with all the pleasure in life. Young Daniel stared straight into the eye of the setting sun with the very face of disaster. "But 'tis the bowling," he went on. "Never a changing the bowlers there'll be. And me and George Avers can't go on for ever. Nay, 'tis all over, I tell you. The boys'll have their fun, and Windlecombe another smashing." He swept the club papers in his pocket and rose to fill a pipe. "But mind ye," he said, looking grimly round the company. "I'll have that there Flittermouse grocer's chap wicket this time, or I'll be. Aye, you see if I don't. If I had a throw at his head." Long after night had fallen, and all the village was quiet under the dim half-moon, I came out again upon the green to wander and ruminate over the week that had gone by. I bared my arms to the biceps, and even in that disgusing light, I could see the sunbeam dark upon it. Yawning and stretching involuntary, a delicious ache spread over me from toe to toe. The Seven Sisters loomed hard by, and I went and lay down at full length on one of its seats, looking up through the black wilderness of boughs at the flinching starshine, and watching the nightjars as they wheeled and whirled above me through the scented dark. They are a merry company, the nightjars. Perhaps there is no other sound in nature that comes near to pure mirth and jollity than this rhythmic, spinning wheel chorus of theirs. Up there, where the dense pine foliage made a sort of black coast to the dark blue ocean of the summer night, a whole nation of them was astir. They did not utter their peculiar note when on the wing, but every moment or two one of the concourse came to rest on a branch with a sudden snap, and forthwith set his spinny jenning blithely going. There is another sound which you hear of summer evenings, often far into the night, and which is nearly akin to that of the nightjar. I heard it only a minute ago in the garden hedges as I came across to the green. But when the two songs occur together, there is no confusing them. They are both continuous, mechanical sounds, and each is curiously varied in tone, speed, and intensity. But while the nightjar's rich music is in full tremolo, uttered from some high point, generally the branch of a tree, the Grasshopper Warbler sings always close to the earth. His note is thinner, shriller, faster. If your fingers were as deft as his slender throat, you could imitate the sound exactly by the rapid chinking together of two threepenny bits. We have now reached July. Excuse me, just swallowing that. A pipe always seems to be the more, looking for the right word, better than cigarettes. Oh yes, a nice... I would like to smoke a pipe. I think it's very dignified smoking a pipe if it wasn't for the fact of the health implication. I think it's very, it mellows you. You slow yourself down. It's very ponderous, isn't it? You can ponder with your pipe and you've got this thing in your hand and puffing. It's a very manly sort of thing, isn't it? A sort of older generation thing. But, of course, nobody wants cancer of the mouth. In the spring of the year, July seems as far off as middle age seems to youth, and almost as undesirable. But when Midsummer's Day is past and gone, whether in human life or in the year's progress, we look at things with clearer, more widely ranging eyes. The man in his prime strength, the season at the summit of its beauty, these are fairer things than the childhood and the springtime that have gone to make them. For the greater must be all the greater and more wonderful, because it contains the wondrous less. Here is our first day of July come, and even since sunrise I've been straying about the field paths and lanes, wending home, indeed only when the fierce noontide heat and the ravening hunger combined to drive me thither. There was this fierce tropic quality in the sunlight from the very first. Though the gilt arrow on the church dial pointed barely 4 o'clock, the level sunbeams struck hot and bright on the face, and in the dew of the grass by the lane side was shrinking visibly every minute. In an hour the last water bell was gone from the shadiest nook in the wood. Only the teasels could defy the thirsty sun, and kept their water traps over-brimming, as if fed from a magic source, far into the heat of the day. There are many common things of the countryside, small facts to be learned for the trouble of a glance, which are known because the glance is seldom given. As I passed along the hedge where the teasels stood up straight as a row of church spires, the glitter of water in their leaf cups caught my eye, and I stopped to look at them. I'd always thought of the teasels as a natural drinking place for the bees and other flying, creepy things. But now that I saw their use was very different. Studying the plant carefully, the whole meaning of the thing dawned on me at last. The teasel must be a flesh-eater, more greedy and destructive than any spider in the land. In the cups, a host of creatures lay drowned, and upon the green translucent leaves and stems there crawled multitudes of others, all destined for the same fate. There were in the water not only small insects, but bumblebees, large caterpillars and slugs, even broad-winged night moths that had fallen to the teasel's snare. I saw also the pools of water insulating every stem served not as traps alone, but actively as digestive cells, wherein the carcasses of the teasel's prey were gradually resolved into the slime that lay at the bottom of each cup. Somehow, I conjectured, this must be absorbed into the tissue of the plant, and cutting one of the stems asunder, just where the water-holding leaves embraced it, I came upon what seemed proof of this, a ring of apertures at the base of each cup, sinkholes, in fact, leading into the substance of the stem. Did anybody know that about teasels? That the bugs and things would get caught in the water and drown, and then as they sort of decomposed, they would turn to a sludge which was absorbed by the stem of a teasel? That's fascinating, isn't it? The path wound down a hillside over the field of tares, rippling away before me through the sea of purple blossom until it ended abruptly against the blue sky far above. And here another minute wonder brought me to a halt. Though it was so early, the beehives were out and about in their thousands. Not the beehives, the hive bees. The great field was besieged with them. The air throbbed with their music. A madness for honey-making seemed upon them all, and yet of all the busy thousands upon thousands set loose amidst what seemed illimitable forage ground, nowhere could I see a hive bee upon a flower. I went down on hands and knees for a closer look, believing at first that my eyes were playing false with me, but there was no doubt about it. Though on every side the great furry bumblebees were seizing upon and dragging open the purple blooms of the tares, the hive bees never touched these, for all they were in so huge a heat and flurry of work. I can't quite work out what he's saying here. Though on every side, great furry bumblebees were seizing upon and dragging open the purple blooms of the tares, the hive bees never touched these, for all they were in so huge a heat and flurry of work. Now I knew that While every other insect under the haven has its times of relaxation, deeming moments given over to dancing in the sunbeam or basking on a wall as moments not ill spent, the honeybee allows herself no such wasteful delights. If she were here in this tare field in her thousands... What is a tare field? T-A-R-E, a tare field. If she were here in a tare field in her thousands, if she were here, and here she was... Wait a minute. If she were here in this tare field in her thousands, and here she was, she came for no other purpose than a useful one. Clearly, therefore, the hive bees were getting nectar in abundance, yet how if they were not seeking it from the flowers? TurboStream says, didn't know that about teasels. We learn something every time we tune in. We certainly do. Another minute's careful watch resolved the mystery. The tare plant... What is a tare plant? T-A-R-E. The tare plant can almost rank with the slug-devouring teasel as a curiosity of the countryside. Knowing well that the hive bee's tongue is not long enough to reach the sweets at the bottom of its flower cup, the tare provides a special feast outside. At the base of each leaf and flower stalk, just where these join on the main stem, will be found a green flap or fin. In the centre of this fin is a valve, from which excludes a thick, sweet liquid. If you are quicker than the bee, you may see the tiny globule shining in the sun as you turn the plant up. But even as you look, a bee fusses in between your fingers, drinks up the liquid in a moment, and hums off to the next stalk. Audrey Forbes says it's common vetch. Oh, right, I've never heard of tare plants. If we can extend no more sympathy to the bee in her folly of never-ending labours than to a lily of the field toil, we must at least concede something for her fearlessness. A peep into her own looking-glass is not always all of virtue's reward. Over the field of purple tares and on through the cornfields, wheat waving high and green with the scarlet poppies flushing midway down. Over the field of purple tares and on through the cornfields, wheat waving high and green, with the scarlet poppies flushing midway down its murmuring depths. Who would have hawthorn and buttercups, the bridal white and the gold of spring, when you can have poppies by the million and roses a wagon load to be gathered from every hedgerow, if he will? Where I stood breast high in the wheat field, the poppies crowded thick together among the green stems, making one unbroken sheet of colour that I could hardly look upon in the full light of summer sun. A little way onward, and this blood-red flare was softened instantly. A dozen yards away there was nothing but the rustling green of wheat. Every moment a lark rose out of the corn, singing, or dropped into it like a stone, silently out of the blue. The hedgerow on the far side of the field shone with the roses, tremulous, uncertain in the heated air. Beyond, in the blue mist of the woodlands, a blackbird chanted his joy of the morning, and all round me, in the distant ring of hills, there were cuckoos, chiming, each note clear, but double, some of the songs perfect still. From the wheat, the path led me presently to the oat fields, green too, but of a cooler, greyer tinge, and full of a stealthy motion and the sound of the wind, though scarce a breath was moving overhead. There is something eerie, mysterious about a field of oats on a hot summer's morning. It's as though the ears bent together and whispered to each other, passing the word on unceasingly from plant to plant. Looking over the plain of grey-green awns, stretching away under the still sunshine, you see low wavelets rise and fall, furrows come and go. The light changes, or suddenly the whole expanse grows mute and still. A gentle, inconstant breeze would produce exactly this effect. But you see it when not a leaf moves in the highest treetops, even when the aspens have hushed their quivering music under the noontide glare. No doubt in a minor degree, all plants show this movement, whether it can be caused by the travelling heat of the sun or simply due to the varying impetus of growth. In a great field of corn closely drilled, there is always the separate individuality of the plants comprising it to be reckoned with. That these exist in fact, as well as in fancy, is difficult to demonstrate, but that each field has a communal spirit, often different from and wholly antagonistic to that of its near neighbour, is evident. For how else to explain why all the ears of corn in one field lean eastward, and all the ears of the next field may incline nominally to the west? Coming homeward at last, surfeited of sunshine, surefitted of sunshine, eyes and ears outwearied with the brilliance of the melody of the day, I stopped a while in the shadow of the church tower to consider an old familiar, yet perennially interesting thing. Just as I, at the fiercest noon, was returning to the shelter of my own cool ivy-mantled nest, the swifts that built in the tower were lancing back to their homes in the glory of the belfry. Singingly, in twos and threes together, every moment saw them arriving and disappearing through the jalousies. Are they the windows? Jalousies? Jalousies. Jalousies. Whatever they are. I'm just showing all my ignorance when I read these books, because I've no idea what that is. But now none went forth again, though they had been coming and going all morning. There they would remain, I knew, quiet in the temperate dark of the old tower until the sun had got out of its furnace-like mood. And then they would be out and about again, yet filled with a whole different spirit. And towards sunset they would be tearing round the sky in a madcap Chevy chase, screaming like black imps let out of a furno. Let out of an inferno, even. So what is Jalousies? It's Louise's. Jalousies. What are they? Anybody know? We're going to have to look that up, seeing as nobody's told me. J-A-L. How are you spelling that again? J-A-L-O-U-S. J-A-L-O-U-S-I-E-S. Well, I put 2 zeros in there. That's not quite right. Also, they're not zeros. Jalousie. Jalousie. A blind or shutter made of a row-angled thing. Oh, the jalousie. Yeah, I'm not surprised nobody tried to tell me how that worked. Jalousie. Is it a French word? Jalousie. Have you seen the jalousie on the top of the tower? No. I noticed that the swifts coming in and out, to and fro, Chevy Chase. Aye, but some of them are going to stay inside the shower whilst the fiercest sunbeam rays come, and then they will come out like an inferno. I know I have, how you say, read Neighbourhood. Neighbourhood, eh? By Tickner Edwards. I got the washing machine making its blimmin' bleeping sound. Windlecombe Mead, where the village cricket matches have been played from time immemorial, lies on the gentle sloping ground between Arun River and the hills. It was the day of the great annual match with Staversham, and most of the old villagers had congregated on the benches round the scoring tent when, in the sweltering heat of the early afternoon, I hurried down to the field with pencil and book. The townsman, it seemed, had won the toss and had elected to put the home team in. Young Tom Clemmer and young Daniel Dray were already at the wickets, taking middle. I looked round at the glum set of faces of the spectators and felt tragedy in the air. "Flower men and a parson," whispered an old cobbler to me behind his hand. "Howard rickety chap as can't run, and 5 bits o' lads. Drat that there hay." "Hay enough. Now they've af." The umpire called the play. The fast Staversham bowler, we knew him of old, retired into open country, wheeled and bore down onto the crease like a bull at a gate. Young Daniel ducked and then turned to face... Young Daniel ducked, then turned up a face of indignant scarlet. But the ball had gone by for 2, and a chuckle of relief spread through the crowd. The bowler prepared to try again. "Daniel's got the sun in his eyes," said old Dray anxiously as he watched. "I never can bide that top wicket. Steady now, Danny, and keep a straight bat." He roared out the last 2 words. Oh, right, I didn't know that. "Steady on, Danny, and keep a straight bat." He roared out the last 2 words, and then in a moment we were all on our feet in a consternation. The ball had never left the bowler's hand, that much we were sure. Daniel stood at his wicket safe and sound, but Tom Clemmer was coming back to the tent, followed by a derisive chorus from the whole field. "Out, Tom? Never out. What in the world outed ye, lad? Out? Never. 'Tis a swindle, Tom." Amidst the eager exclamations of his friends, Tom Clemmer strode into the tent and began to slowly unbuckle his pads, all the time stared fixedly into space. I could have hut with my wrist," he said, after a moment's... I could har up. I could have high up with my fist, he said, after a moment's wrathful silence, addressing no one in particular. "And I could have given that there grocer chap such a... But there, 'tis no use yammering. Don't ye run out, sir, or all the same... Don't ye run out, sir, or I'll have ye same as had to me." He had spoke now to the curate, who was preparing to go to the wicket, and the truth dawned on us at last. The bowler had played Tom a very ancient and very mean-spirited trick. Old Clemmer, regardless of the agony it caused him, stumped his swaddled foot upon the ground. "And I think, Tom," he groaned, as he lit up the forge fire special for us only last Sunday, "'cause his old mare..." I'm sorry about the dialogue, which I am struggling to read. I wish they would just let me do the accent and just give me the words, rather than try and type the words so that you get a sense of the accent, but actually then have no concept of what they're actually saying. I dare say in 1910 they could probably read all this, because people perhaps that was, the way they wrote. But it's bloody irritating because I have no idea what he's actually saying. I'm just making the sounds as written on the page. But we had no thought of anything but the disaster that had befallen us and all that was now imminent. With Tom Clemmer, the one hope of Windlecombe, out of the fight, what might happen to the rest? With bated breath we watched for the third ball. Young Daniel drove it over the bowler's head, and with a trembling pencil I put down 2 to his name. Playing with desperate care, he added 2 more before the end of the over, and we began to pluck up heart again. Young Tom came and stood behind me. His big thumb travelled down the list of names on the scoring book. "'Tis not lost yet," he said, with reviving cheerfulness. "Daniel may do well, once he gets set, and belike Mr. Waverley 'll bide out a bit. And then there be Huggins with his luck, and who knows what the boys will encounter for a dozen or so in between 'em." I now had time, as the fielders were accommodating themselves to the left-handed batting of the curate, to glance down the list. The last name came upon me as an utter surprise. The last name came upon me as an utter surprise. What? Never old Stallwood? Why, he must be 70 if his... Aye, Captain Stall, sure enough. 'Tis a joke, more than anything, but never another living soul there were as could. Old Juppity, Mr. Waverley's hout leg of 4. Oh, Mr. Waverley's out, leg of 4. But it was not Mr. Waverley's leg. I don't know whether you're understanding any of this. With a white face, his body bent to the shape of an inverted letter L, and both arms clasped about his middle, the curate came tiptoeing back to the tent. He sat down silently in the corner. Huggins, a lean, red-whiskered giant in moleskins, burst out into the sunshine and made for the wicket, waving his bat like a war club and murmuring imprecations as he went. "Now 'tis touch and go," said young Tom in my ear. "If he hits 'em, they'll travel, you mark me. 'Twill be either the river or the town or Windle Hill." Huggins stood at the wicket, legs wide apart and bat held high over his head. The bowling now was swift and stealthy, underhand. The ball sped down the pitch, never leaving the grass for an inch. The crack rang out in the dazzling July sunshine. Daniel Dray started to run, but the batsman waved him back. Huggins stood watching the skied ball until it came to the ground in the next field. He laughed uproariously. What d'ye think of he?" There was another 4, and that made 11 in all. Huggins swung his bat and spread his great hobnailed boots for a still mightier effort. The ball hissed down the pitch. Huggins caught it as he hopped from a tussock. Like a lark, it soared up into the blue, and we heard a clear musical plunk as the ball dropped into the river. A roar of delight burst from the crowd. "Lost ball!" shouted Tom behind me. "Hoorah! 17!" Huggins spat upon his hands, took a reef in his leather belt and lifted his bat again. The little underhand bowler came crouching up to the crease and launched the new ball almost from his knees. Wide and wild it flew this time, but there was a sound of crashing timber. Huggins' wicket scattered into space, stumps and bales whirling together halfway up the pitch. He'd hit the wrong thing. And now, wailed Tom Clemmer, "'tis as good as finished. Daniel won't have no chance. Just as well declare and be done with it. The boys, they'll all be done in an over. Well, what about Captain Tom?" It was the voice of Captain Tom himself, and we all turned to look. He was leaning comfortably against the tent pole, the very figure of an old superannuated forecastle hand. He wore his usual vast faded blue suit. A seaman's cap with hard, shiny peak gripped his bald head from the rear. His red face swam in joviality and perspiration. Tom regarded him with mingled respect and doubt. "You can't run, Master Stullard." "True, Tom." "And you ain't touched a cricket bat for 30 years. "True again," returned the captain serenely. "Ho-hum, well, a good pluckin' ye be anyways. Now then, Dickie." The first small boy set forth over the sunny stretch of grass that lay between the tent and the waiting team. Very small and insignificant he looked in his school corduroys and leg pads that reached well nigh up to his waist. His advent was greeted with ribaldry from all parts of the field. We heard Daniel Dre admonishing the boy as he came smiling up to the pitch. "Now, Dickie, don't ye dare run till I shouts ye to, and then run as if he were after ye. How should you hold your bat straight, you young varmint? Now then, look out. There, what did I tell you?" Dickie's wicket was down, and Dickie himself was running back to the tent, vastly relieved. "Out with ye then, out with ye, George Huggins, and do as your father," cried Tom Clemmer encouragingly. "'Tis Hover, and Daniel's got the play now. Oh, Dan'l, if only 'twere you and me." But playing without the ingenuity as well as the courage of despair, young Daniel Dre now began to show his true mettle. Odd runs he refused, taking only even numbers, so that each time the bowling fell to his lot again. I don't really understand. I don't know cricket, so I don't really understand what's going on here. At the end of the over, he stole a desperate single with the same object in view. He reached home safe enough, but George was run out. Boy number 2 had been disposed of at the cost of a gallant 6. Following the same tactics, young Daniel eked out the remaining 3 boys with still more crafty skill. When at length old Stalwart, the last man, launched out into the sunlight to show the town what he remembered of cricket, the score had risen to 49, and our spirits with it. We cheered him lustily as he went. "One more," quoth Tom Clemmer. "Just one, and I light my pipe. Then be allers a chance with 50. Losh, look at that captain." I wish they spoke in English. 3 times on his way to the pitch he had stopped, turned and waved his cap in acknowledgement of the ovation given him. And now he was greeting the Stavishamites, each by name, and shaking hands with the wicket-keeper. He got to the crease at last and grounded his bat. The next moment the whole field had left their places and run for the tent, leaving the captain standing alone and amazed at his wicket. I don't know a bit about, said Tom. Do you understand? I never heard the bowler shout and never seen the ball coming. Belike I thinks they may have all gone for a drink to hearten them at the sight of such a cricketer. I have no idea what happened then. And being free for a time, I took it upon myself the task of walking out to the captain and breaking the news to him as gently as I could. Presumably he was bowled out, was he, in some way, but it's not really clear, and I can't understand. I just can't understand what when he starts using dialogue. I'm afraid I don't understand it. It was now Windlecombe's turn to take the field, and Tom Clemmer led out his team with a good heart in spite of its tale of juveniles. Daniel Dre and the Reverend Mr. Waverley were first out, indeed our only bowlers. One of the first batsmen for Staversham was Daniel's ancient foe, the grocer, and we watched the beginning of the play with breathless interest, for we all knew Daniel would aim to kill. He grubbed savagely in the sawdust and then sent the first ball hurtling down the pitch. The old men were still upon the benches outside, and in that quarter sympathy with Windlecombe was as staunch as ever. But in the scoring tent I sat amidst enemies now. The townsmen crowded behind me, a humorously sarcastic crew. 50 to beat. My old Aunt Mary, do you reckon we'll do it, Bill? Dunno, 'tis serious for Staversham. Only 11 of us be there. Like March won't do it off his own bat. No, if not half. That there Tinker Cove is a-going a bowl first. There he goes! Water! The rest was drowned in a thunderclap of shouting. There was a general stampede among the spectators, for the grocer had given Daniel's first ball clean into the tent. I'm going to pause there because there's a fair bit before we get to the end, and there's quite a bit of this dialogue, and to be honest with you, I have no idea what's going on. They're playing cricket, and all I can gather in between all of this is that Windlesham got 50 and the others have got to try and beat it. Cricket might be all part of village life, but it isn't a patch on the descriptions of nature. Yes, so hard to read. Very, very hard to read. I haven't enjoyed that chapter at all. Turbo says, I once printed a book written in local black country dialect that really looked a challenging read. Yes, few just managed an appearance. Daughter on the phone. A leg, a 4 possible means out IBW, LBW. My father and grandfather, I say I've never played cricket. I mean, I played cricket at school and they threw the ball and we just, watched it. I never batted. I was rubbish at it. Do you remember that whitewash you brushed onto boots and passed to keep them clean? Oh, my eyes. I say eyes, I've only got one. What do you say? Do you remember that whitewash you brushed onto boots and passed to keep them clean? White a right rigmarole. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. It's very interesting, but I know nothing about the game. No. And pads, says Dudley. Pads. Don't know no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, thank God that's over. We would most definitely, I mean, it's a lovely book, but please don't let me read another of Tickner Edwards' books. Not in that style. I mean, there's no let up. There's no let up. The concentration on some of it is just so difficult. We're going to find something nice and easy. I believe Peter and Jane books are quite good, quite short, which will be good. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much. This has been a very tricky... I mean, some days it's been good, and other days I just go away and shake my head because it's... I mean, the observations and stuff, but he doesn't give the reader much of a going. No wonder he didn't publish very many books, I suppose. Anyway, there we go. Last cricket match I was at included Sir Gary Sobers and Geoffrey Boycott. I'd heard the name Geoffrey Boycott, but I don't know who that is. I'd like another Children of the Archbishop. Yes, it must be very difficult. Thank you for your story. Well done, Richard. You're a trooper reading the book. Well, I don't want it to be boring. And I mean, that's the thing. The thing that gets me, and I've said it before, is if I can't do it, I know it must sound dreadful, absolutely dreadful, as you're listening to I've listened to people who can't read, and it's awful. So we will have a nice, easy book. Anyway, nice to talk to you, read you. Take care, and we will continue tomorrow. The good news is we're over halfway. Thank God for that. We may just skip some of this cricket. I'll read it, find out who wins, and maybe we'll pick up from the next bit. And hopefully he'll get back to some easy descriptions. Anyway, that's it for me. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.